Hello, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today my deep dive video is into the Leo new moon of the 8th of August 2021. Now what I'm going to do is explore what a Leo new moon means. Then I'm going to look at the birth chart wheel for that event and see how other planetary influences are going to be having an impact over the next month too. Then I'm going to explain how each of the 12 zodiac signs will fare during this particular event. Now, if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining me. It would be an honour if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Every time I drop a video, you will get an alert. Also, if you'd like to get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, you can do so by clicking on the link below and subscribing. Absolutely free. And also, if you'd like to ascend above your zodiac sign forecast and embrace more serious astrology, please check out my 12-month personal forecast and character analysis based on your time, date and place of birth, which can give you searing insights in the months to come. And there is 30% off with a special offer at the present time. Please also see the link below. Now, this event in Leo occurs at 16 degrees and 14 minutes, and my chart is based on 2:50 p.m. Universal Central Time in Greenwich. For your particular locality, to find out exactly when this event occurs, please see the list on the screen now. Now, the new moon in Leo is one of the most enriching new moons of the whole year because the sun governs the sign of Leo. Now, the moon governs the sign of Cancer, so we could argue that the Cancerian new moon, which precedes this one, is very much about feelings, and the Leo new moon is very much about expression of personality, individuality, talent, warmth, charisma, because Leo has the lot. Because the sun is, after all, the heart, at the centre of all our existences. So when the moon is right alongside the sun in Leo, this gives us an opportunity to big ourselves up a little bit, to put our best foot forwards, to demonstrate some rightful pride in our accomplishments or self-belief in anything that we want to get off the ground. But there's a little bit of a kind of dichotomy, if you like, because Leo is a fixed sign and doesn't necessarily find initiating new schemes as easy as, say, the cardinal signs of Cancer, Libra, Capricorn and Aries. But it does have that innate warmth and charisma. So if you're wanting to dazzle somebody with your skills over the next month ahead, you're wanting to invest much more energy, enthusiasm and enrichment in your situation, then definitely your passion can be boosted by this glorious event. What's not to like, you may think? Well, on the screen I'm now sharing you the wheel for the event, and you can see that Uranus in the sign of Taurus, also a fixed sign, is actually pretty well squaring the sun and the moon in Leo, and this is quite a complex new moon because of this alone. Uranus is not at its best in the sign of Taurus. It's asking us all to reform our outlook to all sorts of material consumption. And of course, it's also in retrograde at the present time, and it has been in quite a chaotic right angle with Saturn, the planet of restriction, for much of the year, and that particular influence started to decline on the 22nd of June. It is coming back the last 5 weeks of 2021 and the first around about 3 weeks of 2022. It finishes on the 21st of January. But even though they are now pulled apart, Saturn and Uranus, they're still individually having a big impact on other planets. So in this particular event, Uranus, which is about being much more free-spirited, sometimes very restless, kicking back against rules and regulations, wanting to assert our individuality, sometimes not quite knowing why we want to change something, but we do. So because in the sign of Taurus, it creates a degree of friction anyway, because it doesn't flex to the changeable nature of the energy of Uranus. The truth dimension of Uranus in Taurus is very much about our values. Now, those values could be around financial things, it could be around our more personal values. So the big energy of the sun, that proud, admiring energy of the sun and the moon in Leo, wants to be adored, admired, fettered with praise and acknowledgement. But I think that Uranus is potentially going to be a bit of a celestial wrecking ball. So over the next month, if we are wanting to start something afresh or invest more energy in it, we have to be very mindful of Uranus. Now, if you stay with me for each of your the 12 zodiac signs, I'll explain how that will impact on yours. But also on the screen, you can see that the ascendant for this event, based on London, is actually at 22 degrees 29 minutes Scorpio, another fixed sign. Now, it is very close to the part of fortune, which can be very good, but Scorpio in a different way can also be associated with resources, certainly passion, and you can see that Mars, the planet of passion, is right at the top of this chart, close to the 10th house cusp in the sign of Virgo. Now, Mars in Virgo, as long as we can let go of some of our need to be in the limelight and be a bit more self-sacrificing, is terrific if we can work hard, be a bit more virtuous about what we eat and drink. But if you see on the other side of the heavens, Saturn is actually in a quincunx with Mars, and that can create some resistance. Also, you will see that Mercury is in the sign of Leo, which is a great place for it to be, because its ability to articulate with warmth, affection, and a large amount of razzle dazzle in the 9th house would point towards our desire to travel and get away. But look back across the other side of the heavens, and there is Pluto, and that's in a quincunx with Mercury. So Pluto and Mercury in a 150 angle could be someone we encounter who's quite pugnacious, outspoken, as they feel that their version of reality is the only version of reality. Because Pluto's in the 2nd house of everyday resources, very Tauran, and Mercury's in the 9th house of freedom, there is potentially some resistance to going about our business, doing what we want. Mars is close to the 10th house, but it's still in the 9th house. And this event, the Leo new moon, is in the 9th house. So 9th house is very much about foreign travel, higher education, philosophies, the big picture. And you can see that Uranus is in the 6th house of everyday responsibilities and obligations. So if you like, Uranus in the 6th house could see us very twitchy if we feel that we have too much to do that ties us down, stops us being free spirits, whereas the Sun, Mercury and Mars, along with the Moon, all want us to do as we wish, when we wish. But on the other side of the heavens, we have Saturn and Pluto, which are providing their own resistance too. So please stay with me, because I'm going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs and explain how it will be for each of them. But for me, this particular event, based on London, is our desire to do as we wish as individuals, particularly around mixing and mingling. You know, obviously Leo and the Sun can be very much, you've only got to think about the Sun card in tarot, it can be about, you know, overseas travel, it can be about being on a nice beach, it can be about luxuriating in doing the things that give us maximum pleasure. And the 9th house is where we want to please ourselves. Yes, we might spend part of our holiday walking around some ruined temple or some kind of historical artifact to give us a sense that it's not just about enjoying you know, the more creature comforts of a holiday, and that's great. But I think Uranus is just reminding us that with freedom comes responsibility. But I think we could all be feeling a little bit resentful and tetchy over the next month that perhaps we're not going to be able to do quite what we wish. and enjoy ourselves quite to the extent that Leo would love us to indulge ourselves. It loves indulging, but it can also be enormously generous too. So please stay with me and I'll go through each of the zodiac signs, starting with Aries. Now for you, Aries, having this cluster of energy in the 5th house is wonderful. The 5th house is very Leonian, so it's very much about you expressing who you are, doing the things that give you a sense of uplift, joy. And why not? Uranus is in your 2nd house, which is your everyday resources. So it's basically saying to you, it's good to sometimes speculate, but over the next month, I wouldn't be diving into situations too recklessly. You know, if somebody's trying to infuse you about some get-rich-quick scheme or about a digital currency, which might be entirely justifiable, might be a real opportunity there. Don't dismiss them, but do diligent research, because I feel that you could feel quite impulsive over the next 4 weeks. And when it comes to your love life, that actually could bring some drama to play. You could definitely have a hot and steamy clinch with someone. Whether it's going to hang around or not is another matter. You may not care. You just want to have some pleasure. And I can totally relate to it. But just be aware that if there is any sizable amount of money involved, or it involves perhaps your values being challenged by someone you get involved with, just be mindful of that before you make any big decisions. Now, Taurus, for you, the collection of energy, not just the sun and the moon, but also Mercury and also Mars, all in your 4th house. This is the home, emotions, family. But Uranus is in the part of your horoscope to do with you, the individual. So if you're wanting to decorate, to in some way rejuvenate where you live, this can still be a very good new moon, particularly if you're prepared to adopt some more novel or unusual ideas. But equally, if you're one of those Taurus people that really doesn't like much change, and I think a lot of Taurus people have changed a lot about their lives over the last few years, because of Pluto, Saturn and Jupiter being in your 9th solar house, and of course because of Uranus being in your sign. So you have shook things up, many of you, but if you're one of those people that really, really likes your routines and finds it very challenging and threatening to do something different, this particular new moon is asking you to flex. Try a few new approaches, because if you don't, it wouldn't be a surprise if some deeper emotional issues start to stress you out a little bit, or you feel you've got some headaches. It's because there's a lot of resistance to this push to change things up somehow. If you're more open to changing things up, but you're wondering when the change is ever going to come to a close, or you've made the change and you're still feeling unsettled, I can really relate to that, having moved this year myself. And I'm quite a Taurus type of person in a way, because I have, a strong amount of 2nd house in my chart, and my descendant, how I relate, is also very Tauran. I'm very down to earth. So, if you are trying to come to terms with some kind of big alteration that's occurred, I can really sympathise with that. But you are still in pole position to make some enormously positive changes. It's just being relaxed about it and not stressing too much if some of it feels a little bit unusual, new, novel or unsettling. It's just part of the process you're going through. Now Gemini, for you, with such an adorable amount of energy in your 3rd house, which is very much in keeping with the vibrancy of your own sign, this can really be a time for you to put your best foot forwards and share with people some of your great thoughts, principles, theories, ideas. It doesn't matter if you've had that book that's been, broadly on the go in the background for a while, or you want to write a blog, or you're someone who's a whiz at technology, or you're just, someone who's good at socializing with people and being very abreast of current affairs and being very witty. This can be a super, super new moon. What is not to like? Well, it is that Uranus position, because as I've said before recently for you, if you're very much joined up with the more vulnerable, sensitive, emotional, spiritual side of your nature, you can surf the energy of Uranus in your 12th house really well. If you're less so, I think you could be feeling a little on edge. Maybe your nervous system feels a bit stretched out. It's harder to sleep. Maybe you feel a little bit more on a shorter fuse. All of that would be understandable over the next month with this particular event. But also, because the third house is about learning things on an everyday basis, you could get seriously informed about stress, about understanding what makes you tick, about some of the techniques that you can use to ease things, and how you can use your quick wits perhaps to teach or train or assist others, because that's a glorious gift that you naturally have. Now, Cancer, for you, this cluster of energy occurs in the second house, so that's very much about the foundations in your world, but it's about money, so money can come in for you over the next 4 weeks. But also, because Uranus is in your sector of the future and friendships, you're probably going to become more attuned to who doesn't really quite share your core values in the way you thought they once did. Now, maybe someone's going to be really jealous about the fortune that you're developing, or the greater sense of serenity you may be developing. Or it could be that your own core values are actually going to go through something of a sea change. Now, I think that that is very possible, because Uranus is going to continue to shake up your higher values for some years to come. So the core values is how it works in reality. So this is about how we pay our bills. So, we can be a sort of monk on the side of a mountain, breathing in mist to live, eschewing any kind of dietary supplements whatsoever. And of course, there are some people who are that enlightened who can do this stuff. But I think for most of us, we need to earn some cash and pivot to find the right balance between how we live our life and find peace and what we really want of meaningfulness, but at the same time exist in the practical reality and realm. So there could be a little bit of that stuff going on, and you could find yourself being a bit more outspoken with some friendships or some associations, but equally some new people could head into your world in a very exciting way. Now, Leo, of course, for you, the new moon in your sign can really be a massive opportunity to launch yourself, catapult yourself forwards in a more dynamic fashion. Now, if you've listened from the beginning of this video, you'll know that I said that Leo people don't always find it easy to get things off the ground. Now, that might not be true of you individually, particularly if you've got a lot of very dynamic house positions in your chart, or for example, you've got personal planets if you're born near the start of Leo in Cancer, that's a cardinal sign. So, but generally speaking, Leo people don't pitch into anything new without a lot of thought. But when you do get into something new, you tend to put a lot of commitment into that, which I think is one of your most admirable features. But I think that something does need to change in your world. It's probably around the world of work, or how you linked other people in general, how you connect and gain that admiration and respect, which is so important for you. And if your job or role has changed because of the impact of COVID, perhaps you're still trying to find the new pathway forwards for you. What I will tell you is over the next month, lots of very good ideas can come up for you. And with Venus in the second solar house of your situation, your finances can improve. It's just that Venus is in opposition with Neptune. So if someone, if you do encounter someone, if you're solo, this can be very romantic and see you quite, quite captivated by someone's mystical aura. But equally, Neptune can be very, not just mysterious, it can be very ephemeral, and suddenly this person could seem to be more and more opaque, more and more evasive, and they're gone. So yes, but you can definitely draw somebody to you. You're going to have your natural magnetism is turned up to max, but with Uranus in your 10th house, I think if you're finding it difficult to reorientate your direction in life when it comes to how you link with people outside of your everyday world, that could be where you could feel a little bit of stress, knowing that some kind of change needs to occur. And therefore, if you are starting a new phase in your life, it really wouldn't be a surprise at this time. Now for you, Virgo, having such a clustering of energies in your 12th house is very psychological, but you do have Mars and Venus in your sign, which is going to dimulate some of that psychological stuff. But you do have also your ruler Mercury in the sign of Leo too. So the 12th house new moon is one of the more challenging ones of the year, to be honest, because the 12th house is about the things we don't necessarily want to look at. You know, it's the elements of our nature that maybe are not quite so, we're not quite so comfortable with, or maybe things from our past that are still haunting us a little bit, bad dreams, anxiety, fears about people not liking us, stuff like that. And because Uranus is in your 9th house, that's a very amplifying influence, and because all those planets in your 12th house are very tender area, then Uranus can quite unexpectedly amplify your vulnerabilities, and it may be that someone's going to spring something on you that you're not expecting by being rather frank and blunt, very Uranus in Taurus, not realizing that you actually perhaps are not feeling quite as robust as they may feel, and you have to defend yourself or protect yourself in some way from what can feel quite a sort of direct confrontation. Might be a little bit of a strong word, but some things that are a bit sensitive could come into the open over the next month. But it can also be an opportunity for you to find out much more about what's really important for you. So if you take some time out to retreat, pardon me, to meditate, to spend time in nature, to talk to someone who's very kindly and empathetic and understanding, to have some counselling or an alternative therapeutic treatment, the next month is absolutely fabulous for all of that. Now Libra, having such a cluster of energy in your 11th house, this is all about friendship, it's all about popularity. And the ironic thing is, with your ruler Venus and Mars in your 12th house, that's an almost immediate counterpoint to your potential to raise your popularity. So it's not that you're not going to be popular, because Libran people can often be very, very liked indeed. But seriously, I do feel that what this particular event might ask you to do is have a bit of a sift through. You know, we don't tend to use filofaxes like we did in the olden days. I've actually still got mine from years ago. It's quite useful for friendships that I've had going back many, many moons, because I've still got those addresses. But, you know, these days sometimes people go through Facebook and have a little bit of a cull and think, why am I friends with this person? They never say anything nice to me, and they just delete us. It's happened to me as well. And sometimes you can think, oh, they've gone, why is that? And it's not for any offensive reason. Very often it's just because they're deciding to really have a sort out and focus on the folks that are really important to them, which I really can respect. So there may be a little bit of that going on in your situation over the next 4 weeks, but it's also an opportunity to bring some new people into the world who share the sincerity and perhaps brevity that's also important to you. So a bit of a change in the guard when it comes to your friendships, group activities, and perhaps also some of your longer term hopes and wishes for the future. Uranus is in your 8th house. The 8th house is where we're invested financially in the long term. So if you work in a group dynamic, for example, but you don't feel very recognised, you could, with Uranus's sort of trying to find the right adjective, curmudgeonliness, you could speak up a bit and say, well, look, you know, I'm actually worth more than you're paying me. And with Venus and Mars in your 12th house, you may find out whether they share your view. If they do, great, because respect has become massively important for you Libras over the last few years, quite rightly. And as you probably know, my ascendant is at 23 degrees. So conjunct the fixed star speaker. So a very, very important time for me too over recent years. Now for Scorpio, the clustering of energy is in the 10th house, which is about how we link with the wider world. It's how we get recognition, raise our profile, set goals, work very hard, perhaps try to improve status. But for you, Uranus is in your 7th house of relating. So if you work for a boss who's very much one of those old-fashioned tellers, I've got a friend of mine who's a brilliant manager, works for a big health organisation in Britain, years of experience, really knows her work back to front. And she's got a boss who's very much a teller, tells her what to do. Really old, horrible old style of management, rather than the more inclusive approach, which works best, because then we all feel part of something. And that's where you are at the moment. Wherever you're invested, be it at work, in a close relationship, setting your own goals and hopes, you need to feel that your links to others represent you, how you want to be, or how you want to feel, or how you want to be seen. That's critical. Now, Sagittarius, having all that array of influences in your 9th house, and in this chart obviously they're all in the 9th house too, is terrific if you do want to find a way to break free of any COVID restrictions and go and do something different and spontaneous, because you're one of those zodiac signs, and I have Mars in and Saturn in Sagittarius. So either knowledge or travel are two things that always inspire Sagittarius people. It never fails to amaze me how much my wife knows about all sorts of things. She came out the other day that certain types of jellyfish are immortal. So it's just like, I wouldn't know that. But as a Sagittarius, you probably might know things like that, or things she doesn't know. And I can just stand at a bar and just with my mouth, my jaw on the floor, because of the vast knowledge that archers tend to have. And that desire for knowledge and that inquisitiveness is definitely going to be boosted over the next 4 weeks. But so is the resentment you're feeling if you're having to put practical demands, obligations, responsibilities, chores are stopping you from going off and doing what you want. That's going to be rather irksome. But this is a pretty good chart for you, to be honest, particularly with having Venus and Mars in your 10th house, because perhaps the changes that are coming through for you are in terms of work or greater recognition, but some kind of alteration is in the works. But it's a rare Sagittarius that doesn't like a change of scene, or at least a change up, greater flex into something new and more exciting. So some kind of adaptation could emerge over the next month, which I think that you're going to really love and enjoy. It just may mean that you're spinning a few plates just as you juggle things around to get things realigned as you wish. Now, for you Capricorn, having this collection of energy in the sign of Leo is actually very much about change, potentially, or about where you're most invested. Now, investments can be in terms of stocks and shares, pensions, savings accounts, or they can be in terms of our emotions. It doesn't really matter which, because the investments that are more financial or are more, if you like, tangible, earthly investments, whereas emotional investments are something that we often have the greatest journey with in life, and sometimes the greatest rewards, but also sometimes sadness, because the 8th house where all this is going on can be very transitional, because it's essentially very Scorpionic. Some things can just fade out of our life. But what Uranus has been pushing you to do over the last 2 or 3 years is to really be much more creative, inventive, spontaneous. Your thoroughness, your worthiness, your responsibility, your decency to keep going when others are often wilting is the stuff of astral law. But Uranus has been saying that's fine, but don't forget the rock and roll. You need to have burst out moments, embrace your amazing sense of humour, surprise people with your genius, because you've got it. And different from a lot of other zodiac signs, it's not just that you have the great ideas, you then go away and actually apply them, because you put the effort in, the grit and the perspiration to make things come to something meaningful. So there's every chance that you could take an inventive or different idea over the next 4 weeks and make more money. But equally, there are some, as you know from the overall events of this situation, Saturn and Pluto in your sign, Saturn in your second solar house of everyday finances, they are being a bit inhibiting. So, when it comes to money, I wouldn't be too free and easy with your resources. Use your usual wisdom to check things over very prudently and very cautiously. But I think Uranus is saying to you, don't let your practicality pulverize your passion, whether it's around your love life, sex, or money. Aquarius, this event for you all occurs in your 7th house of relating. Now, Aquarius people, I feel get a really bad rep from sort of, the kind of magazines type stuff you read. Oh, Aquarius, I was reading the other day, Aquarius moon, absolutely hopeless at relationships, too detached, too cold. It's absolute balderdash, because everybody's personality is based on their natal horoscope, not just their sun sign. I actually have the moon in Aquarius, and I think I'm very attuned to relationships. They're enormously important to me, and I've got my friends that are very, very much part of my life that I speak to virtually every day. Not maybe huge amount of them, but very important players. Now, whatever type of Aquarian you are, and I would never dream of telling you which one you are, because there are so many. Let me just look at my shelf. Now, I've got about 3,000 different exhibits of different Aquarius people. Exactly. We can't be categorized. That's the whole point of being an Aquarius. We're outside categorization. Except that we do look at things with a fresh eye. We don't necessarily get bowed by trends. We can have the courage to say, no, I don't agree with that, so load of rubbish, governor, and so forth and so on. But this event is really saying, if you can put relating at the heart of what you do over the next month, it could be very rewarding. It's just that Uranus, your modern ruler, and mine, could throw a little bit of a fly in the ointment, in the sense that something that you feel very passionately about emotionally may surprise someone who's read these women's magazines. That's not anything against women's magazines. It's just that that's where these type of articles tend to appear, and think that, hold on, you're not someone who has these kind of intense feelings about relationships. You're the ice person of the zodiac, which clearly Aquarius people are not. But what is very important to Aquarius people mainly is a kind of universal need to feel a decency and honesty in whatever we do. But I think Uranus could see some Aquarius people wanting to break away from a relationship where they don't feel they're getting much back. And at the end of the day, Uranus is the planet of rebelliousness. It is in the sector of the home, emotion, family. Could be tense scenes in the family, could be tense scenes with a living partner, but some kind of essential truth may need to be expressed around relationships over the next 4 weeks, and you will do it supremely well, particularly with Venus and Mars in the 8th solar house and pretty close together. That's pretty hot. Mars in the 8th house can be very much about intimacy. Venus is more sensuous and more sultry, and perhaps more about cultivation. Maybe it's the charm that comes before the raw coming together in a moment of passion. So but they are there, so they're going to bring some greater excitement to bear for you, perhaps even for me. Blimey. And that brings us to Pisces. Now Pisces, all these planets for you are occurring in your 6th house, which is about work, routines, fitness, diet, purity, making sure that everything is running, proper, neat and tidy, and its mechanisms are sprung and all the rest of it. But Uranus is in your 3rd house of everyday thinking, and also can affect the nervous system. So the worst thing you can do over the next month is actually to try to be too virtuous, because if you do, you could end up feeling totally stressed out. Instead, embrace the fact that Venus is opposite Neptune, your ruler, and enjoy some very special moments with people that matter to you. It could be going out for a drink with colleagues if COVID rules allows. With Venus and Mars in your 7th house, your desire to relate to people can be strong. And equally, if you're single, don't be surprised if you get chatting suddenly, Uranus, to someone in the supermarket queue. But yes, you can make some part of your existence more efficient. You may change your work, something like that over the next few weeks. But really and truly, give yourself some moments to have some fun and pleasure too. So that completes the in-depth forecast for the Leo new moon of the 8th of August 2021. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to sign up below for your free daily horoscope straight to your email. Or if you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please see my testimonials below. But for now, stay safe, take care, good luck, and goodbye.